Hola a todos, bienvenidos a esta plática. Mi nombre es Magaly Olivera, soy editora y crítica cinematográfica. Como editora trabajo en festivales como Ambulante, el Festival de Cine Cinema Queer y el Festival de Cine de Barrio desde hace ya varios años, y como crítica publico en distintos medios como El Economista, Cine Garage, Icónica y varios otros. El día de hoy tengo el gusto de estar presentando esta sesión de preguntas y respuestas con la directora Marion Naccache, quien dirigió la película Venice Beach, California, que forma parte de esta edición del Black Canvas, el cual podrán disfrutar del 1 al 10 de octubre de este año, en una edición híbrida que tendrá funciones tanto presenciales como en Filmin Latino. Los invitamos a que vean las redes para que puedan ver exactamente horarios y sedes y demás. Vamos ahora a ver el trailer de la película y después platicaremos un poco con la directora. Gracias. Bueno, hola de nuevo. Como les decía, vamos a tener una plática con la directora Marion Naccache, quien nos acompaña esta noche. Y bueno, la sesión va a ser en inglés, así que a partir de ahora cambiamos de idioma. Hi, Marion. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Hi.
I was doing a little introduction about this conversation. So to begin with, I gotta say that I really like your movie, and I'm very happy to be with you tonight and talking a little bit about your work. I would like to start with a very basic question about how you got to this place and why did you decide to portray it throughout your film?
Yeah, sure. Well, first I'd like to say I'm very happy to be here too, and I wish we could all be together in Mexico, but maybe next time. And so this film, actually, the idea, I got the idea of the movie when I was editing my first feature film, Coney Island, last summer, which is a film about one summer of the amusement park in New York, which was supposed to be the last one. And while I was editing this film, I realized first that the fact that the amusement park was on the beach was very important, both in my rushes, but also in what really interested me in that place. And this year I was editing. I did 2 trips, one to Brazil and one to Los Angeles. And during those trips, I discovered 2 very interesting urban beaches, which were both very interesting for very different reasons to me. And that's when I discovered Venice, and really the idea of the film, it arrived a bit almost by accident, because I was staying in Venice and I had a very big jet lag. So I was up very early, and because I didn't want to wake the friends I was staying at, I would just sneak out and go walk on the street, on the boardwalk. And that's how I discovered that moment of the day that you can never imagine if you're not up, where actually it feels like you're walking around somebody's living room, because it's a moment where everybody who actually sleeps on the beach is waking up. And so basically that's where the film started, more or less.
And for how long were you shooting at the place then, if you were kind of sneaking out to do it?
Sorry?
For how long were you shooting at that place?
Oh no, it's not that's my first time I went to Venice. So I was just staying there for like a few, maybe 10 days or 2 weeks. And because I was up so early, I started walking around and I started discovering that place and that moment of the day. And that's when the idea of the movie was like, was put in my mind somewhere. And then I only was able to actually go back and shoot in 2016. And when I shot that film, and I stayed a little over 2 months shooting every day.
Okay. And because you're working with the homeless people situation, how did your perspective about the lifestyle that they could have or the way they think change before and after doing this movie?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
That's okay. Maybe I'll just take my microphone
Yeah,
a
maybe.
little bit closer. So before, because you're talking about homeless people, how did your perspective about their life and the way they think change before and after doing this film?
That's a really good question. I'm really glad you asked it because, well, there's two very important things that happened to me during and after that I realized. The first one is I was certain before I started shooting that I had no how do you say that in English? A priori, like preconceito in Portuguese. Do you know how?
I think we can also say a priori because it's like a Latin word.
Yeah.
That we use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was certain I didn't have any of those preconceitos about homeless people and homeless communities, and actually I have to say that I realized how many I had without even being aware I had them. And this is linked to the second very important thing that truly changed while I was in the process of filming and recording sound, was when I decided to record sound just with the microphone and not, putting a camera in front of people's faces. I thought I was expected to collect many, many life stories, and I did. But I also, one thing I really wasn't expecting was I collected many very strong cosmogonies and political visions of the world, and that was part of my preconceitos, I wasn't expecting such strong and yeah I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know if it answers your question, but yeah.
Yeah, sure. And I think it's also something that you experience while watching this movie. Honestly, I had no idea I could hear this kind of testimonies either. Yeah, they're very powerful also. And it's a misconception we have sometimes that it's good to kind of get rid of,
Exactly.
And in that sense, I'm guessing you recorded like a lot of different people talking and all. How did you choose which testimonies to add to your film and which were like the subjects that you wanted to prioritize there?
Well, it was really hard for me because all the sound material I got is really amazing. So what I had to decide while I was editing was I decided I was gonna make an audiobook out of all the stories I recorded, and I want to publish them from the beginning to the end, not edited. I mean, just and so I don't know yet who will do it, but this is the next step for this. And doing that, it allowed me. So the audiobook is ready, and doing that, I was it allowed me to cut, because in a way, I needed to make sure I wouldn't have to put aside some words and some sayings that were are still very important. So that's the first thing I had to do to be able to cut. And then how could I guess one thing which was very which I tried a little bit to when choosing both the subjects and also the kind of sayings that appear in the movie. I really wanted to address the political situation in a way that would be both very grounded, like I shot when Donald Trump was elected. So I really didn't want to like erase that. But at the same time, I wanted it not to narrow the subject too much. You know, I think you can feel this is happening at a very key moment, but, you know, most political issues are still, I mean, since they even grew, you know, bigger or more urgent, and that's actually something, you know, I finished the film during COVID. And I worked with a wonderful Brazilian editor who her name is Isabela Monteiro de Castro. And we worked together to go from the rough cut to the final cut. And this was after the first, you know, moment of confinement and sedation, and we really, we both really felt like everything you hear in this film started to echo even more in a much stronger way as the pandemic was growing. And, you know, I don't know if it makes sense or if it also answers a little bit your question, but yeah, I wanted to highlight those aspects and also to allow the, you know, like there's a turning point in the film where it's like you can, you know, you go to Mars, and I wanted to allow that, not giving it the more respect possible in the way to hear it.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned these things, because I actually wanted to ask you how the situation changed nowadays with the pandemic, and only if you are in contact with them, how did that affect them? And also with the political changes that we've been living since that film was shot, right? Like, do you know how did it change for them?
Yeah, well, COVID for them was dramatic. I'm still in touch with almost everybody you see or hear in the film that is still alive, because some people unfortunately passed away since I shot the film. And actually, I was following with them. They would tell me every day about quarantining out in the street at the very beginning, you know, like March 2020. And that was very scary, because at first there was maybe a whole month where no one was outside anymore. So no one could, you know, buy art, give them food, you know, help them. And the only choice they had was to go to some shelters, except the shelters were like clusters for COVID, you know, like big places with, you know, and you with thousands of people parked inside, put inside. And once you got to the shelter, you were not allowed to leave. You had to keep quarantining. I mean, so it was a very, very tricky situation. And then, so that's at the beginning of COVID, of the pandemic. And then what happened was actually what you see in the film. Because of COVID, it didn't exist anymore until right now, where I'm not sure what's going on. But basically, the homeless population tripled, or so many people ended up in the streets because of COVID, that this thing, for example, of having to move all their stuff from one side of the boardwalk to the other, let's say a few months ago, it didn't exist anymore because there were so many people camping out on the beach that both sides of the boardwalk were like a big, you know, camp or something. But I think it started maybe 2 months ago or maybe a little more. The neighborhood and the police decided this couldn't keep going like that, and they try to get rid of the homeless people. And I've seen very strange images on the internet, like you know, the police with like guns facing. I mean, I don't know. It's very, and this I have to say, it's hard to follow from so far away. But for sure, you know, the situation it's gotten worse, even though Trump not being the president anymore. I mean, they were very happy about that, like anyone else, I guess. But it's tricky. Yeah.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And also, I guess it has an effect because of the lack of tourism maybe as well. And like the whole situation must have changed there, I'm guessing, right now, right?
Yeah.
So I would like to talk a little bit about more formal aspects of your movie, starting by asking you, why did you choose to leave your main characters outside of the camera? Like, we can only hear their voices. I know the word in Spanish for this, but not in English. And also about like the angles of the photography, because they're always kind of like from the side. And, you know, like I would like if you can talk a little bit about those decisions.
Of course. So first, everybody you hear appears in the film. You see everybody, you just never see them while they're talking. Sometimes you see them before, sometimes after, never simultaneously. And some of them are easier to identify than others. And so that I decided to do that for three kind of reasons. I mean, one big reason that I could subdivide in three reasons. It's political choice, poetical choice, and ethical choice. Ethically, because I work without authorization, you know, film permit and everything. While I'm shooting my films, I have to constantly negotiate the where I put the camera, and in this case, it felt like in this case, it felt like it wouldn't make sense actually to shoot filmed interviews or talking heads, because one thing I really knew before even I started making the film is I didn't want to make a series of portraits of homeless people. You know, that was not my idea. So you know, and clearly when I got there, it was obvious to me that if I wanted to get adopted also by them and the whole community, I had to stick to that intuition that I had before started shooting. And that ethical intuition, it came from a poetical inspiration. Because it comes from the American objectivist poet Charles Reznikoff, who in his books, I'm going to give you an example. There's one of his books that's called Testimony, where he rewrites some kind of history of the United States using minutes of penal law process. Can you say process? I don't know. You know, when you are in court and you go and you testify, everything the testimonies say is written down, and
Yeah.
so he gathered all those juridical transcripts of trials, penal trials, and he cut from both the victims and the criminals' testimonies to rewrite some kind of story of the United States, building a collective voice out of individual experiences. And with Venice, I wanted to try to do something a bit similar, creating a collective voice of the boardwalk out of singular voices. And finally, the political reason behind all this is also, I think paradoxically, sometimes in order to disinvisibilize, like make something visible, sometimes the obvious, like just show what's never seen in a very literal way, is less efficient than a more, I think I tried to make them more visible by giving them a voice. And I think their voice, in order to be heard, gets more powerful if you see their daily routine while you can hear their cosmogonies. I don't know if it answers.
Yeah, definitely. It's really interesting to hear you say that, because I do feel that sometimes when we see things, we may reaffirm certain stereotypes we have of like a physical appearance or whatever, and we may not pay so much attention to what we're hearing actually, right? Like the vision can be very strong. So I think it's really good that we don't see them, but the environment in which they have to relate and all, right?
Oh yeah, and then about the shots.
Oh yeah.
I forgot to answer. Yeah, I will answer quickly if you want, but I think it's very important. Those very open shots. I like, I like to talk sometimes of a diagonal perspective, because they're very often, diagonal. And I like the idea of democratical shots, because it gives the freedom to look at whatever you want. You can, this film, some people can say nothing happens, but actually if you pay attention to the different layers of each images, a million things are happening at the same time. And this kind of framing, I think it allows both me and the viewer to choose if they want to focus on what's happening on right in front of the camera, or something over there, or like a bird flying, or a wave, or somebody entering, getting out of the frame. And I think, to me, this freedom in the observation, I think it's very important, and something I keep working on in all my films, because I think this kind of long, steady, very open, diagonal frames in shot, they change the pace we're used to watch things. Like it really slows down the way images usually move in front of us, either in movies or TV or commercials or cell phones or anything. And also the fact that no one tells you what you're supposed to look at. It's two different kinds of little bit of viewing habits in order to really look at the world a bit differently.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm going too far with this, but I feel like it's even kind of metaphoric when we're seeing this movie where we get to choose what we see when we're walking down this avenue, right? Like you can see the birds and the beauty, or you can see the stories behind these people, or you can like judge them. So it's, then again, maybe my interpretation is going too far, but it works as a metaphor of what we choose every time when we're looking at these like situations, right?
Maybe, yeah.
Now that you mentioned like the ethical and political matters behind this, I also wanted to ask you, like, this is not a feeling I got from your movie at all, but sometimes, as we know, like cinema can appear to be a little bit aggressive on how it approaches their subjects. And also, how was the process for you when you were talking to these people? How did you relate to them in order to not fall into that tendency?
Yeah. Well, there is something happened maybe the 7 or 8 days of the shooting, which was kind of really amazing. I was so basically what I do when I start filming is I always start with a camera. Like I don't go to the places without a camera before. So I always have a camera and I start shooting, and I have to work on the distance between me and what I think is going to be the subject of the film. And in this case, you know, because I was starting shooting every morning at 5 a.m., I was, of course, not going to be like filming from very close, someone waking up in the street, you know. So I was, especially that first week, I was sort of filming from far away. And when people would come ask me what I was doing and everything, I would tell them, and you know, and some people would just, even the very first day of shoot, just show up and start talking to me, and others, you know. So it was at first it was very, and I'm a very sensitive person, and I mean, I guess it might sound silly, but I think instinct. I can feel if I'm annoying someone or if I'm, you know. So that's the beginning. And so after maybe 1 week of shooting, one day I'm shooting and I'm starting to feel a bit more at ease because I've been here every day for 7 days, so people recognize me, and you know. And then one man who was very mad starts yelling at me and picks up a piece of metal and throws it at me, and it arrives like really close to me. And then another man skates in front of me, and he says something like, yeah, that was kind of rude, you know. So I turned off the camera, and I went to talk to the guy on the skateboard, because the other man who had thrown the metal bar at me, Marion, it's his name, he was so mad. It really wasn't the right time to talk to him. So I went to talk to the guy on the skateboard, Ogre, and I started apologizing, and I told him I'm really sorry if I was being rude, and we started talking, and I explained to him what I was doing. And then the rumor spread on the boardwalk that I was okay. Like how this happened, and then Mario, I became, you know, very the one who threw the piece of metal at me, started talking to me, and everything was, and so that's what I think it's a good example of on how it works, and how it worked really. And then the sound recording also, I think, was at first you asked me what changed for me during the process of the film. I wasn't expecting also because basically by giving them an open mic, I realized I was giving them something they never get, which is someone who will just listens. You know, I didn't ask any question. Basically, you know, I told them, you can say whatever you feel like saying, and some recordings lasted hours, other lasted 10 minutes. You know, it was really, and that I mean, it's not, it's I'm not saying it doesn't change anything, you know. I'm not but I mean, their reality is really hard and everything, but I think the fact that they were able to speak and be heard, it was something also that was, in that way, that was very important.
That's really beautiful. We are sadly running out of time, so I will ask you if there's anything else you want to say, and then we'll just play the trailer again because we had some technical issues at the beginning. So we'll just play it again so people don't miss your film. But if you want to say something else.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing, because it's so frustrating to be so far away and not being able to be there. I think on the website of the festival there is some contact information. Please feel free to write. I would be very happy to interact, you know. And thank you again for having me, and I hope the festival goes really well, and yeah.
Thank you so much for your time and for Black Canvas for screening these movies that are really important. So we're going to see the trailer, and then I think we'll be gone. So let's say goodbye for now.
Goodbye. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time.
This is a really weird town. Like, I've never been anywhere. I don't know. I've never been anywhere quite like this. I mean, every town out in California is different, but this is like totally different. Because it's all nice and friendly during the day, but at night it becomes a totally different place, you know. Right? Just 2 days ago they had a girl stabbed up on Windward, whatever. I mean, there's a lot of griminess here because Venice is kind of like Coney Island, kind of like the Coney Island of this coast, and you know, it was designed after the city of Venice, Italy. It's got canals, it's got wetlands, you know, it's built in a circle, so it wraps in on itself. I mean, but it was literally meant to be like a ghetto. It was supposed to be actual affordable housing by the sea. You know, that's everything I've gathered. You know, but I mean, what part of Los Angeles really isn't a ghetto anymore? Some places are better than others, but it's all the same.